All on. I'm going to wait a minute until Sportscaster takes a moment. Justin Whitner is here. Yo, what's up, Lawrence? BTG just finishing their stream, so I figured, oh, cool, thanks. Is it going live? Sportscaster is live, but I'm not seeing me live here on. Oh, yeah, I am live. Daggone it. But I had to stream up on first, so I didn't know. Let's see if it's working. No, it says it's waiting on me because I don't know how this is going to work now. So this is something I've never done, and it should be going live, but it's not on YouTube. Let me make sure how this works because this isn't cool. Edit video. Why is it not going live? It says it is online, but I'm not seeing it online, which is weird. Let me see if I go to my channel, if it's showing me live. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good, man. I got time.
Yeah, it's showing me live right now. Yep, there it is. All right. Okay, so I'm sorry, everyone. I didn't realize I was sitting on the waiting scene, waiting for this, and it did not pop up. I had to go and actually go to my channel so I could make sure that I'm able to see the live chat here on YouTube just to make sure. I want to welcome everyone here on Sportscaster and on YouTube. Thanks for showing up. As you can see, I have Colts.com writer Andrew Walker with me here today, and great guest. I just want to point out, first off, thanks for joining the stream, Andrew.
Oh yeah, of course, happy to join.
I want to make say a little something about Andrew. He's one of the guys that actually got me into doing what I've been doing. Way back, well, I can't say really way back because it was before the 2018 season. I was doing some write-ups on the Colts.com forums, and I had asked Andrew to get in and look at my stuff and tell me what he thought. And he suggested that I go do write-ups for other online sites. And I ended up getting a full press coverage for a while. And then they told me I should get into audio podcasting, did audio podcasting for a while. Then I had listeners tell me, hey, you need to try doing videos. So I went to Sportscaster, and then the vice president of Sportscaster was like, hey, you do a really good job. If we work with you, would you mind taking a job with us? And I was like, heck yeah. So now I'm the NFL analyst along with two other guys for Sportscaster News.
Look at that.
And it's all because of that guy right there.
It's your hustle, man. Hey, if you hustle and you can make it happen, it's happened to me too. You just got to wait for the right time and the right opportunity. But if you hustle and show you work hard, and you've done that. So congrats to you on all your success.
I appreciate it. Okay, so let's get down to the nitty gritty. We was talking before the stream started off about, the whole tier 3 thing.
Yeah.
The 3-tier stuff that's going on because of the COVID situation, and how certain players and coaches and staff members have to be apart from each other. And because of that, there's only so many people that are allowed in the building. And because of that whole situation, you're in a very precarious spot watching these things. What? Explain this to everybody.
Well, I'll welcome everyone into my bedroom, first of all. And a lot of people can probably relate to this, but, you know, I've been working from home since March, you know, like a lot of people. I haven't been to the Colts facility since then. And so just kind of been waiting for, you know, practice or whatever, actual practice, not really workouts, to start. And I think here in this next week, maybe Wednesday, Thursday-ish, I'll probably go back and start checking out once the helmets come on and it's a little bit more resembling a real practice. But yeah, Matt Taylor actually did an interview with Dave Hammer, who's the infection control officer, really the head athletic trainer of the team, but he's been appointed, you know, the infection control officer. So he's the point guy in all the COVID stuff. And he was saying, you know, other than the team, you only get 100 of these tier 2 or 3 or 1, 2, 3 spots. So think about it. That's 30 coaches. That's 20 trainers and all kinds, you know, cafeteria workers and all kinds of stuff. So our content team, we were lucky enough to get 4 spots, which if you think about it, is pretty substantial. We have 2 video people, Matt Bowen, our photographer, and Amber Darrow's, you know, doing the social stuff. They're tier 2. So that's very good. Like myself, Lara Overton, and Matt Taylor, we found a workaround. So once we do go back, we will be going through a small little, it's, you know, this tiny, I don't know how, you know, I've fit in it before, but you go up and go on the roof, and we're going to be catching practice from the roof. It's a loophole. It's a workaround where we're far enough away. We're not in any restricted area. And then there'll be 8 or 9 media members kind of congregating in the end zone or something like that. So we'll have a better vantage point, fortunately. I'll probably have to get the binoculars out from time to time, but that's okay. You know, that Lucas Oil press box is way up there, so I have to have the binoculars anyway. So, you know, it should be a lot of fun. I'm just ready to see some real football.
Yeah, that's going to be really, really fun. Well, you're going to have to deal with wind and stuff too.
Yeah.
Bad weather.
Yeah. Fortunately, it's not too bad. And, I think when if they do move inside, they're going to try to open up the little garage doors they have. And there's a kind of a loophole there. You can stand right by those and see inside. So, you know, it's not ideal for anyone. It's not ideal for the players or coaches, you know, this whole year. But you just got to find a way to make it work. And the team's going to do that. We're going to do that. We're still going to try to get the best content we can. And I think you've already seen a lot of the stuff that our content teams put out, some really good stuff behind the scenes with Pierce Campbell. I'm sure a lot of people saw that, kind of going through the COVID measures, and then just kind of being in the meeting rooms, being on the practice field. So we were able to do photo shoots. It was a little different, but we were able to do them. So it's been a lot of fun so far.
Awesome. So I announced that we were going to have you here on my stream with me as the guest today, and I had a question from somebody that popped in and wanted to know that if you believe that Rivers can make all the throws, because he says that he saw a clip from Stampede Blue that showed that he was late and behind on throws when he was with the Chargers. And real quick, personally, I want to throw my little 2 cents in there because I know you're going to have plenty to say on this. Me personally, there's not a quarterback in the NFL that throws a perfect throw every time he steps back, right?
Yeah.
You're going to find throws that are just bad, no matter how good of a quarter. You could go and look at Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and be like, that was a god-awful throw. But it's really about what that quarterback does on a consistent basis. Does he make that terrible throw on a consistent basis? And I just don't see it. But give me your thoughts, man.
Yeah. Well, first off, I don't profess to be like a throwing mechanics expert. So, you know, I can look at a quarterback and see, you know, if they seem a little off or whatever, but I don't really profess to say, you know, oh, he was 3/4 or the 45-degree angle really isn't working there. You know, I don't really get into all that stuff, but I will say, I don't think that the Colts are shelling out $25 million to a quarterback who can't make, you know, make the good throws, and Frank Reich and Chris Ballard both said they watched the film from last year. Obviously not Phil Rivers' best season by any means, not his worst, but they thought all the physical tools are still there. Nick Sirianni is raving about the accuracy and the playmaking, even just in these first few days of kind of just walkthroughs and kind of slower stuff. So yeah, I don't know if last year, I'm sure he had a few bad throws here and there. I know he had a few more interceptions than he would have liked, but I can't sit here and say with any certainty that it's an issue coming in. Like I said, you brought this guy in to be the big play guy to kind of amp up this offense, and he's getting a lot of money to do it. So I think the Colts have a lot of confidence he's going to come in and do a good job.
Well, yeah, you also, it kind of rolls into with my first question that I had posted in the description of the video, where would Rivers have a bounce back season as compared to last season? I mean, the Chargers didn't have a very good offensive line, and it doesn't matter who you're throwing. When you have someone in your face and you're throwing off your back foot, you're not going to be accurate. It's generally going to be high and behind or overthrown or something of that nature. Even though he has age on him, and he threw 20 picks last season, and he had pretty good wide receiver weapons with the Chargers. Do you think he could actually be better with the Colts, with the system and the players that he's got around him and the coaching?
Yeah. So, one stat I always look at, and I'm kind of looking at my screen here, so just so I can be right, but Philip Rivers has thrown 20 interceptions a few other times in his career. I'm looking at 2011 and 2016, and he threw 20 interceptions in those years, at least 20. And the next year, he just bounces back and has really, really solid years, especially 2017. He threw for 4,500 yards and 28 touchdowns to 10 picks. So if he's in that range, if he's even in the 4,000 range, 28 touchdowns to 10 picks, I think, I hate to be a big, you have to get these stats type of guy, but if he's in that range, I think you're cooking. And I really think in this offense, he knows the offense. He's familiar, obviously, with Frank Reich, Nick Sirianni. So that's a huge boost. So you've got that going for you. I think you have the weapons in place all around the field. So factor all that in, a really good offensive line on top of that, what should be a really, really solid rushing game. I think that Philip Rivers is set up, 38 years old or not. I think he's set up for a really solid season here in his first year in Indy. It was interesting hearing him say there's a few things here and there that's new to me. I haven't done some of this stuff maybe behind the scenes nutritionally or in the weight room or whatever. But other than that, football's football. Philip Rivers, there's not much he hasn't seen. So he's going to come in. I think he's going to hit the ground running. And I don't see him struggling very much this year, if at all, for long periods of time, just because of the familiarity, the offensive line, the run game he can lean on. There's a lot of good factors for him coming in.
Oh, yeah. And being that one of the big aspects to why the Colts passing game was not very good last year, and everyone wants to drop it on Brissett, but frankly, it's hard to have a good passing game when you can't rely on your top three receivers that you started the season with because of injuries, and the fact that your starting quarterback retires and your backup quarterback gets hurt halfway through the season. So do you think that this receiving core could take a big step this season as opposed to from last season?
Yeah, I just think they were snake bitten last year. Sometimes that happens at positions. I mean, you look at the year Kenny Moore and Pierre Desir had to step up, at cornerback when they were relative unknowns. And we saw throughout that year how they kind of stepped in and did a good job and kind of earned a bigger role the following year. But the quarterback position at that point was just decimated. And I think we saw that last year at receiver when your top guy, T.Y. Hilton, who will battle through anything in that 2018 season with the high and the low ankle sprain and the abdominal injury and everything he went through. I think that proved just how tough he is when he's still not able to get back. And he was able to come back, but I think we all know he wasn't 100%. When he misses all those games and all that time. And when Paris Campbell, who in the few times the ball was in his hands, he was just electric. I mean, I thought there was 3 or 4 times he was just going to go to the house. He's that close, especially, early on. You get the ball in his hands, good things happen. He just has to stay healthy. So I think if you're, you like what you saw with Zach Pascal, he stepped up. Marcus Johnson did a good job stepping up. Some guys stepped up, got some more reps, got some more experience. Now you get those guys back healthy, and hopefully they stay healthy, knock on wood. And then you add Michael Pittman Jr. to the mix. Maybe Darius Fountain can turn some heads again and get all the way back. Ashton Doolin's a guy that I know the staff's big on. There's going to be a lot of battles there for that probably 5th and 6th spot, and which will be great to watch over the next few weeks. But those top 4 guys, it's a pretty solid group, a very versatile group. Interested to see how Pittman responds to the pro game, but it seems like he has all the tools to be able to do that. So, yeah, really deep receiver group. I think could really surprise some people. There's some maybe people, outsiders, perceive better groups in the NFL. But this group, I think, can join that upper echelon if it can stay healthy. T.Y. Hilton in a contract year, I think that's going to matter. I think he's going to come out and really show some people wrong that for some reason attaching an injury-prone label to him. I don't think that's accurate. I think he's just had a couple years here where he's just been, like I said, snake bitten. So I'm interested to see how he responds. Paris Campbell is electric, and Zach Pascal and Michael Pittman. That's a pretty good 1 through 4.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I mean, I'm a film guy myself. I love breaking down film and seeing what makes a player tick.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I think that this team is being slept on in the passing game a lot. I think that Campbell, had he been healthy last year, would have been a huge boost. I love Michael Pittman and what he brings on the outside. Right. T.Y. Hilton, very, very quick, great route run. That thing about T.Y. is everybody sees that, he's fast and he can catch the ball and he's got grit.
Yeah.
But if you watch, he knows where the quarterback wants to throw the football. Doesn't matter who's throwing, whether it's Brissett or with Andrew Luck. He can see the field as he's running his route and knows right where the quarterback wants him to be. And that is a huge plus for any quarterback.
Yeah, it's incredible watching T.Y. in practice because, like, training camp last year, I mean, you watch it, those little out routes he had, I mean, he is in the exact right spot every time. And the ball just it's just right here. And credit to the quarterback for throwing a good ball, but he's where it needs to be. And the most interesting thing I hear about T.Y. is maybe he's not the most technical route runner, but if you know where to be and when to be there, it doesn't really matter. Just be where you need to be and catch the ball. So that's the name of the game at receiver. So there might be more technical route runners, Michael Thomas or whoever, at the top of the route or at separation at the beginning. But T.Y. Hilton just gets the job done. He makes some really good cornerbacks look silly, like turning their heads, not knowing where he is, losing them. So he's a guy I think can still come out and have a monster year. He's yet to get 10 touchdowns in a year. I really think he was on his way last year early. He was really, really good in the red zone, which people might be surprised by. I think he had 5 or 6 red zone touchdowns. So you can add that into what he can bring you on top, over the top. And T.Y. Hilton can be a top 10 receiver in this league again.
Awesome. All right. Let's move on with another point. Let's continue on with the offense. Who do you think? All right. Colts draft, and everybody knows this. Colts drafted Jonathan Taylor in the 2nd round. And there's a lot of speculation around Taylor and Marlon Mack.
Yeah.
A lot of people, there's some people that are, still high on Mack and think that Mack will still carry this team. There's people, but a lot of people don't believe that Mack's going to get a contract because he's going to want money and they're not going to want to pay him because that's why we went and got Taylor, and that Taylor could be one of the better running backs in football, especially behind this offensive line. Where do you see this running back group and how it could end up turning out this season?
Yeah. And, it's funny how, and we saw with the, with the next pick production, that the beginning of the second round couldn't have gone more perfectly for the Colts, where they get Pittman at 34, and then they're kind of sweating it because they really wanted Taylor. They really wanted him bad. They maybe got an inkling another team or two are in the mix ahead of them, so they move up 3 spots and get him. It was a perfect kind of scenario for them. They wanted big play offense, and it seems like they got it. So first off, it's great how that worked out for them. I've been of this opinion on the Mack Taylor thing pretty much since kind of the COVID stuff and the virtual meetings and all that, and when it was apparent that this was going to kind of affect sports moving forward. Jonathan Taylor's going to, I don't think there's any doubt he's going to be a stud in this league. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But running back is one of the hardest, if not other than quarterback, the hardest positions to come in and master, as a rookie. You can come in and have success running the ball, but you have to protect the quarterback. You have to know what you're doing out running routes. You have to catch the ball in the NFL today out of the backfield. And Jonathan Taylor can do all that, but we all know Tom Rathman, the running backs coach, is a stickler for all that stuff. And Marlon Mack, Nyheim Hines, and Jordan Wilkins have kind of survived the Tom Rathman school of hard knocks, because we all know Rathman's background as that tough, to me, Hall of Fame-like fullback for the 49ers. So if you can survive in Tom Rathman's school of hard knocks, you're really doing something. So those 3 guys have really done a good job. Taylor has to show that he can do that. And I don't think there's any doubt he can. But you've missed all this on-field time in the offseason. You're not going to have the preseason reps. So Taylor's going to come in and he's going to have, he's going to have all these accolades in college. He's probably going to be really good behind this line. But I think you roll with Mack, in my opinion. You roll with Mack, especially early. Give Taylor his touches, see if maybe a heat check here and there, see how he's rolling. But I think at least first 4, 5, 6 games of the season, maybe the first half of the season, Mack's your guy. Throw Taylor in there, see how he's rolling, see how he's picking things up. Of course, Hines is going to have his role. Wilkins can spell these guys. He's averaging 6 yards a carry in his career and does a great job with his role. So to me, long story short, in my opinion, go with Mack, go with the proven guy, give Taylor his touches. Let's see where he's at. And then the second half of the season, it's on. You can split it. You can see who's hot. You can ride the hot hand. You can mix in, 3 running backs in the backfield if you want. You can play with all that if you want. But to me, go with the proven guy first. Go with the veteran who's done this. And that's Marlon Mack. And he's a really impressive football player to me. Love watching him run. Love watching him play and evolve since he was behind Frank Gore's rookie year and evolved since then. So I'm a big Marlon Mack guy, and I think Jonathan Taylor will be a stud. And I'd like to see his role gradually increase.
I'm going to get a little bit deeper into this, which you probably expect. You touched on the fact that Jordan Wilkins averages, I think it's 5.8 for his career.
Yeah.
But I think it's like 6.2 one season and then like 5.6 the next or some crap like that. But anyhow, he leads all NFL running backs with anyone over 50 carries per season.
Yeah.
In average yards per carry. But and you think about that and you go, why wouldn't he get any more carries than that if he's getting so many yards per carry? And then you go back, he was getting carries until he started to drop the football a little bit in his rookie year. He dropped it a few times. I think that kind of scared speculation here, but I think it kind of scared the coaching a little bit, and it kind of weaned him off because they were talking about wanting a 1-2 punch and kind of splitting carries. And then next thing you know, Marlon Mack is just, workhorsing it. On top of that, Marlon Mack, of course, last year had all those carries that he had and didn't drop the football one time.
Yeah.
Now, with that in perception, Jonathan Taylor is averaging 6 fumbles per season in his college career. Does that kind of weigh in on your head a little bit about
he's got to prove it. He's got to prove it. And that's we can talk about Tom Rathman We can talk about pass protecting. We can talk about being a good route runner and catching the football and running the ball in the right zone and reading everything right. If you don't hold on to the football, Tom Rathman's not putting you on the field. And that sounds duh. I mean, any coach is like that.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Rathman is the biggest stickler for holding on to that football. Last year, the Colts had one fumble. I think Naeem Hines had a random fumble in some game. One fumble. The running backs had one fumble. I mean, that's incredible. For all those carries, you have more than 2,000 yards. You're just out of the top 5 of the NFL in rushing. I think 1.5 yards per game out of the top 5. So that's incredible. So to me, it's not even a red flag with Taylor because he had so many carries his first 3 years that's it's not great to have those fumbles. But if you look at the percentage of carries he had fumbles, it's pretty much in line with a normal average running back. I think Derrick Henry had a 1.8% fumble rate last year or something like that. And he did pretty well for himself. So I'm not worried about that. Tom Rathman and the rest of those running backs will ensure that he's carrying the ball the right way. If it does become a problem, we'll see. But I just don't see that being an issue for a guy like Taylor, who's just so, I don't know, he just seems so smart and mature and already kind of a pro, that I think he'll get that, literally tucked away and be good with that.
All right. I want to take a moment here and welcome Matt Skura, USN, Brewers fan 30, Seagal 22.
Brewers.
Yeah, a Brewers fan's in here. Seagal 2293 and Bubble Boy 206 on Sportscaster for joining here. And also, I've got 8 to 10 people right now so far live on YouTube watching. Guys, I've got Andrew Walker here. If you have any questions or comments, feel free, drop them in the chat. We'll make sure we interact and answer those, or even maybe comment on your comments. So let's move on. The secondary, the Indianapolis Colts secondary. We got a little bit of a turnover, right? We lost Pierre Desir. Pierre Desir walked. We picked up a couple guys, Xavier Rhodes, TJ Carey. It's interesting to me because if you look at stats, yardage wise, the whole zone defense really stands out because you're seeing the high completions and a lot of yards. But then you go to your red zone touchdowns. That whole bend but don't break.
Just don't call it that in front of Matt Eberflus.
I know.
Do not say those words.
I know. No one really wants to hear that, especially him. I've heard what he said on that interview. But it is basically what that is. But do you think that the Colts have more personnel in that secondary to be more of a man defense this year?
Yeah, well, and you saw against the Chiefs, obviously, that's the hallmark game. But Mahomes was still Mahomes. And we know he's a little hobbled, but he was still Mahomes and made his plays. But those guys, I mean, the secondary was just sticky and made it happen. And, it was I'm got 75% man when it was the complete opposite. The first, 4 weeks of the season for the Colts, they were playing more zone. So I think you want to be able to have the ability to do both. I don't see Matt Eberflus, giving much on. He really loves his zone defense. I don't think he cares, but you're going to give up your short passes in this defense. I think that's just the way it is. As long as you have guys that can run and tackle, guys that can force turnovers, and now you add, a DeForest Buckner up front. Hopefully Justin Houston's just as disruptive, if not even more now. Kamoko Touré's back up front. If you can add a little bit more pressure up front, cause a few more mistakes, and keep being kind of a run and hit defense, which there's nothing wrong with that. There's a couple, as much as Matt Eberflus doesn't like it, there's a couple terms in football I don't mind at all. One is bend but don't break. Because if you're not breaking, you're not giving up big points. So that's okay. And the other is system quarterback or whatever. I don't think there's anything wrong with running your system well. It may not mean you're number 1 or 2 or 3 in the NFL in big plays, but Kirk Cousins has been a really good quarterback. A lot of people call him a system quarterback. Look at his numbers. You can put him up against almost anyone the last few years. So I say that because this is kind of a run and hit, don't tell Matt Eberflus, but bend but don't break kind of approach. And I think it works with the personnel you have. So secondary wise, as you alluded to, there is a little bit of turnover. It's heightened by the recent news that Marvell Tell and Roland Milligan have elected to opt out. So that's arguably your number, probably 3 or 4 corner and your number 4 safety. And that's nothing to scoff at. Those guys, are one play away from being a starter, number 1, and also big time contributors on special teams. So you have to figure that out now. But I think for the most part, the Colts did a good job addressing the backup nickel spot with either TJ Carey, Isaiah Rodgers. I think Isaiah Rodgers I think he's got a lot to him. I really do. And a 6th-round pick, a lot of speed, but he's also a playmaker. He can return kicks for you. We all know the 4.28 speed. So I think they might have found something in the 6th round in Isaiah Rodgers. We'll see. But I think you address the major needs at nickel corner behind Kenny Moore. And then we'll see, Julian Blackmon, of course, won't be able to really contribute. We don't know, probably, October, Chris Ballard said, until he's really in the mix. He had ACL surgery in December. So it'll take a little bit for him to get back. But I think what we saw down the stretch last year wasn't very good communication between the safeties and the corners. And we saw a lot of just kind of head scratching touchdowns over the top where, the safety was looking at the corner, like, what are you doing? And it was like, no, what are you doing? So I think they'll look at the film. They'll fix that. They'll kind of, glue it together, have better communication. They better in this passing league that we have. And I think they'll figure it out a lot better this year compared to especially down the stretch last year.
Well, there is a huge benefit to playing zone defense when you're playing against mobile quarterbacks, right? Yeah. Because every one of those secondary guys are in their zone looking straight back at the quarterback. Especially our 8th game, week 9 against Baltimore, we're playing against Lamar Jackson. You want all eyes on that guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be Spy City, up front. And, I'm really, really interested in seeing how Lamar Jackson plays this year because, and I think he's a different echelon than an RG3 or these other guys that have come in year 1 and really done well with kind of the option-y, I can run, I can pass, what am I going to do? But by year 2, year 3, defenses figure it out. And Lamar Jackson, I think, showed last year, I can throw the ball just as well as anyone. But I'm interested if defenses can now. They're not going to totally figure it out. But if you have a defense like the Colts that's just built on speed, pure speed, and you could contain a guy like that, and you have DeForest Buckner up front causing problems in the interior, and you have Justin Houston coming off the edge, and he's not able to escape the pocket, and then you have fast linebackers, and you have the corners in the zone watching them the whole time. I don't call me crazy. Maybe you can call me a homer, obviously, my role. But I think this defense is kind of built for quarterbacks like that. And you have to play Deshaun Watson twice a year. So that will help. And I think we saw with Patrick Mahomes the second time through, not that division game, a couple years ago, Mahomes was just getting what he wanted. I don't know what happened that game. The Colts just fell flat. They just weren't ready from the start. But I think that second game, you saw a big adjustment. So, I'm confident in this Colts defense. That will be a huge test, obviously. And Lamar Jackson's going to make his plays. But that's the perfect quarterback along with, Deshaun Watson. I think this defense does a pretty good job against compared to others.
Yeah. I was saying that a lot where, I feel like this team was basically built to stop Deshaun Watson when he gets out and scrambles and runs around and stuff. And that's just going to translate to, in my opinion, I think it should translate to Lamar Jackson, but to keep him from getting good yardage before the cornerbacks can get to him, you would think that Eberflus would have a linebacker spy on Lamar
Well,
Jackson at all times.
What's funny is if you watch the Texans film from the last couple years, a lot of times they have Grover Stewart as the spy. It's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. But you have this huge dude, waving his arms and in Watson's face. So they add a wrinkle in there where Grover Stewart's kind of this big burly run stuffing dude up front, but he kind of takes a couple steps back and he's just this big guy in the way. And it's kind of tough if you're a quarterback, like, wait, what is this? So so they definitely add wrinkles to it. And Grover Stewart, I should say, I'm excited to see him play this year. I think he took a big step forward last year. And it wasn't a really good year for the defensive tackle group as a whole in terms of impact plays, but I think he definitely stepped up. And he's definitely earned a pretty big role in this team moving forward.
Oh, I believe so too. I mean, Grover took most of your double teams last season. I mean, that was his job. And this year you got DeForest Buckner that's going to be right beside him, who was the sixth most double teamed defensive lineman in the NFL. Who you can't double team two guys at once on the offensive. That's going to be crazy, So they got to pick and choose. So that's going to be tough sledding. Justin Whitmer has a question here on YouTube. Do you think Roosevelt Nix will be used in the passing game?
I'm a big look at the back of the baseball card guy. And I look at Roosevelt Nix and he gets a couple, few passes thrown to him here and there a year. But his job's to go in there and mess everybody up and just create a hole, be a bowling ball, be a special team stud. So of course he could get targeted. There could be a game where the game plan calls for they're just totally ignoring the fullback in the flat here or whatever. And he could make plays. But his primary role, of course, is to go in and be a lead blocker for this really good running attack. So yeah, he could have a game or two where he makes a few plays in the passing game. He might get a handoff or two on 4th and 1, 3rd and 1, or at the goal line. But I'm mostly looking forward to Roosevelt Nix just crushing dudes up front and creating holes. If you've got Quentin Nelson and Roosevelt Nix running at you at the same time, and you're like a cornerback, I mean, you might as well just run off the field because you're not going to do anything. So really looking forward to Nix. I'm interested to see how that affects the rest of the roster, how the numbers shape out. But I definitely think he could be an asset.
With the addition of Nix, if he's kept on the 53, does that hurt the regular running back situation? Do we still carry 4 regular running backs with him?
I think the way I kind of see it shaping out is 3 tight ends. You keep the 4 running backs and Nix, and then the 5 or 6 wide receivers. So you kind of take away what's usually been 4-ish tight ends. I think you're good with 3. If you have an injury situation, it kind of changes it. And of course it's football, injuries are going to happen, but I'm big on keeping, of course the 4 running backs. I think Wilkins definitely should be in the mix for sure. But I would say keep the 4 running backs in Nix, maybe just 3 tight ends and then keep 5 or 6 receivers. You should be good.
Okay. All right. So we touched on it earlier with DeForest Buckner. Many of you have probably seen where he had spoken about where he feels like he's being slept on this year, and he's going to use that as a chip. And obviously Colts fans are no stranger to players saying they have a chip on their shoulder because they're being underrated. Darius Leonard's got it all over his shoes, right? But with DeForest Buckner being on the defensive line right now, how does this change the defensive dynamic of the team itself?
I don't think, in the history of this Tampa 2 approach, with Dungy and then Caldwell did it, and then now back with Eberflus, you've had some pretty good interior defenders with the Colts. And the biggest one I can think of that made the biggest impact, in a short amount of time was when they traded for Booger McFarland in 2006, and he came in and brought kind of just this different attitude and really, I think, kind of helped change things up, especially for that playoff run to win the Super Bowl. But I don't think the Colts in this approach and this defense have had anything near the caliber interior defender as DeForest Buckner. You just look at size, you look at strength, you look at quickness, you look at shedding blockers, you look at taking on double teams, you look at just causing disruption, run or pass. And then he makes impact plays on top of that. You can be really good at, doing all that stuff, but he's got kind of this Darius Leonard knack for knocking the football out. He scored a touchdown, I think, last year, picking up fumbles. Maybe he'll pick off a pass with those big arms. Who knows? So he not only does everything right to begin with off the snap, but he makes impact plays too. So what you've got is you trade. Chris Ballard loves his picks. He traded a first-round pick for this guy, and you sign him to that big deal. He's coming in and playing what they say is probably, there's the three spots, the three tech, the will linebacker, and the nickel corner. The Colts now have studs at all three of them. So they're covered there. And it'll be interesting to see now the effect that Buckner has. I see a big effect up front. I see Justin Houston freed up. I think Danico Autry's bound to have a bounce-back year. People forget. I don't think people know who Danico Autry is other than Colts fans. He had 9 sacks 2 years ago. People forget that. And that year, he was kind of 60-40 playing off the edge and inside. He was the starting 3 tech, but he played a lot off the edge. Mm-hmm. I could see him going out to that edge a lot more this year and wreaking havoc in a lot of packages. So you've got Autry, you've got Toure coming back, you've got Houston. Muhammad's kind of your Jabal Sheard type player, kind of edge setter type guy, and Ben Banigou, who hopefully makes that year 1 to year 2 jump that a lot of the really good pass rushers do. So you've got a really good front there, and we talked about Grover Stewart, and so you've got really good guys there, but you've got a star, and I think that's going to matter. You've got an All-Pro up there, and I think that'll make a huge difference up front. It'll make huge difference in the middle of the field, and then back behind where guys have a little bit more opportunity, whether you're playing zone or man, to make plays because there's going to be a lot more havoc wreaked on the quarterback.
You touched on somebody. You were like, not a lot of people know who Danico Autry is outside of the Indianapolis Colts. Kemoko Toure is another one of those names, and I had asked. Oh my, how did I forget his name? Out of nowhere, number 98, Robert Mathis. How do you forget his name? So I asked Robert Mathis. I did a film room on Kemoko Toure, and I was just blown away by what I saw, especially last year. Just the first 5 games, I was absolutely blown away by what I saw until he got hurt. And I asked Robert, I was like, hey, I believe that if Toure is healthy, from the film work that I did, that he could be a top 5 pass rusher in this NFL.
Yeah.
But I want to know your opinion.
Yeah.
And he just straight up, absolutely. What are your thoughts on Kemoko? What do you think his ceiling is if he comes into this and stays healthy for full season?
The dude's a freak. I mean, so I think a lot of people, he's going to need to have a 13 sack season or a 15 sack season for people to start knowing who, quote unquote, knowing who he is. But if you don't just look at sacks, if you look at pressures, and Pro Football Focus is good at that. Some people don't like Pro Football Focus for grades or whatever, and I'm okay with some of their stats, other stats, whatever, but they're pretty good at pressure numbers. If you're getting pressure at the percentage that he's getting, that he's gotten his first 2 years, especially last year in those first 5 games before he got hurt, you're going to start cashing in on those. I think he had a sack and a half last year, but the pressure that he was bringing when he was on the field is what matters. And eventually you're going to make it home more often than not when you start bringing pressure like that. So that's how the sacks build up. That's how you build one on top of the other on top of the other. We saw that with Freeney. We saw that with Mathis back in their heyday. So he has Freeney, Mathis-like potential. I think you just have to find the right role for him right now. I think they did a good job with that, kind of in the third down package, obvious passing situations. And he's no slouch against the run either. I think he made big strides against the run last year. His rookie year, I think he was still figuring out a little bit. I think last year made some strides against the run. So you can depend upon him in earlier downs, but I think he has a potential to be a star in this league. He just has a natural knack. And then on top of that, we're watching him work out with Robert Mathis, what better guy who loves pass rushing, hates quarterbacks than Robert Mathis to work with, work on the hand stuff. And I think it's been big for Toure to learn through Mathis. Yeah, you can bring 10 or 12 moves as a defensive end, as an edge guy, and the tackle's not going to know what you're doing. Why don't you throw your fastball more often than not, which is speed, Kemoko Ture's speed and quickness off the edge. That's his fastball. Use that more often than not. We'll give you the tools to do other stuff, but throw your fastball and you'll see where that'll take you. So, Toure with the kind of the real bad ankle or ankle injury he had, maybe it'll take a little bit longer to get back. We don't know. Maybe, we'll see if he's ready week 1 or whatever. But once he is back, I'm excited to see him take off. And again, just like the wide receiver position, with health, he should have a real solid year.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you was talking about, how bendy he is, how fast he is, and one of his most dangerous things moves in the stunt game. I mean, my goodness. I mean, I watched. I broke down a clip against the Chargers where he should have had just a straight up just Phillip Rivers burying sack, and Austin Eckler just basically had to wrap him up and tackle him, or he was not getting away. And somehow the refs never saw it.
Imagine that.
And Phillip ends up throwing a touchdown. But that happens more often than not than what a lot of people realize. There's a lot of holding going on, and blatant holding that doesn't get called. Why is that? Do you know why that happens?
If I knew, I think I would. I don't know if I'd be writing for Colts.com. So if I could break down exactly how referees do come to the conclusions they do or don't come to conclusions they don't, I'd probably be doing something else right now. But I'm kind of coming around. Like, I'm a big baseball guy. I've kind of mentioned baseball a couple times already in this, throw your fastball and the back of the baseball card. But, I'm coming around on like a robotic strike zone and all that. But for the most part, what I like about baseball is there is the human part of it with umpiring. And I think it's the same thing with football, with refereeing. There's just a human element. Yes, there's blatant stuff that doesn't get called. That Saints, playoff game a couple years ago, probably one of the more blatant misses of all time. But for the most part, it's a tough job. I'll give those guys a break. It's a tough job. I think they do a pretty good job. You'd like to see them clean up kind of the hold stuff a little bit. But on the other hand, the game's already slow enough as it is that, if you start throwing flags for, that one wasn't ticky-tack, but if you start throwing things and you're on the borderline of ticky-tack, then the game's just going to last 4 hours and you're going to lose viewership. So you got to keep the game moving too. They have to keep that in mind. So it's a tough job. All
right. So another one of those position battles on the Colts this year. McLaughlin and Hot Rod.
Yeah.
Who you got winning?
That's like when you opened up asking, someone asked about Phillip Rivers' throwing motion or arm angle or whatever. I mean, I haven't seen Phillip Rivers throw in practice yet. So I haven't seen the kicker's kick yet. I will say I was very impressed by Chase McLaughlin last year, not only with the Colts. He came into two different situations where he knew he was just a fill-in guy and made the most of his opportunities. Now, he did miss, I think, a late kick in overtime. I forget which team he's with at that point. But really, he hit all the easy ones, I guess, quote unquote. I can't hit probably a 5-yard field goal, but all the easy ones he made, all the extra points. And I think he came in with the Colts and showed he can be a really consistent kicker in this league. And I think he did a good job. the added pressure on top of that of replacing the greatest kicker of all time, and did a good job with that. So that's definitely working in Chase McLaughlin's favor. Now, Rodrigo Blankenship is coming in with all the accolades in college. The most impressive thing to me is, and I know it's a little bit different, but he had all 200 of his extra point attempts in college at Georgia. And we saw last year, and again, there, you know, for whatever reason, extra points at a couple junctures came to bite the Colts pretty hard a couple times. So McLaughlin did a good job with that. Rodrigo Blankenship seems to do a good job with it. So if you can come in and make just the basic kicks, and then we'll see if maybe Blankenship has that special factor. Some of these kickers, Justin Tucker, you know, comes to mind, you know, and Vinatieri was this way for so long in his career, have that it factor. If you can come in and not only hit the kind of the easy ones or the typical field goals, if you can have the it factor and be good in the clutch, hit some from distance, you know, 55 plus yards and be pretty consistent at it, then you've got yourself, you know, a gem. He's got to do it though. So we, you know, no preseason snaps is really, I think, going to be a big factor here. So we'll see who responds to, you know, the practice reps better. And I'm looking for, you know, that's definitely one of the main position battles I'm going to be keeping an eye on when I'm standing on the roof at the Indiana Farm Bureau Football Center, and I might be even get hit with a couple of their kicks, is that kicking battle. So I just being honest, I honestly couldn't give you an assessment either way. I haven't seen them. But I do know McLaughlin did a really solid job as an undrafted rookie last year coming in 3 different situations and handled it very well. So that's got to help him. But Blankenship has the potential to be special, really special as a kicker. He's got to do it at the professional level. We've seen some really good college kickers come in for whatever reason, not do so great at the professional level. So we'll see if he can kind of get over that hump. And if he can, it's going to be a really fun battle to watch.
So you've had time to go over the schedule for this upcoming season, and it's not necessarily a cake schedule if you look at it. Do you have a kind of an idea how you feel the Colts will end up doing this season?
Yeah, so I look at 7-9 last year, and there were so many, especially early on. There are just so many games that came down to 1 or 2 plays, and that's the way this NFL goes. You know, it's which team can make those plays, which teams can't make those plays, and you know, again, it's not the homer in me; it's just the kind of the analytic side of me showing if you made a couple plays here and there, you're looking at 9-7, you're looking at 10-6. I think it's legit to say for the Colts last year, and you're battling for a playoff spot. You know, who knows how it would have shaped out with the Texans and the Titans. So I look at that and say, why not start at 10 wins as a starting point, and move from there? So if it's anything less than that, I think, you know, something happened. I think it's either more injury issues, you know, maybe Philip Rivers, you know, doesn't come in and immediately, you know, strike gold for you immediately. If it's anything less than 10 wins, to me, 9 wins is okay. But if you're not at least in contention for the division title, then I think there's some concern there. But I really see the Colts starting out at 10 wins and maybe even doing a lot better than that.
Just Plain Folks guy, I know he's on Twitter and stuff as well. He says, Lawrence and Andrew, great job, guys. He believes they'll go 11-5, and he thinks that if it wasn't for Vinny, that the Colts would have made the playoffs. I can't drop it all on Vinny because there was so many things that went into a lot of those losses, right?
Yeah.
And I think Frank Wright really, during that stretch where Adam Vinatieri was having problems, he even kind of expressed, you know, if they would have made one extra play here or stopped one play on defense there, then the game would have been different. So
well, it's everyone sees the play at the end of the game, and obviously you have to make those. But it's just as important to make a play with 13 minutes to go in the third quarter, So if a defender misses an assignment at, midway through the third quarter and it leads to a touchdown, when really it shouldn't have, that's just as important. Now you have to be able to be clutch. You have to be able to make the plays. And, obviously it seems like at least towards the end, the knee was bothering Vinatieri. He was trying to play through it, but the way that Vinny was kicking in practice, and people, don't roll your eyes at that. It matters because nowadays there are analytics on everything. Vinny's velocity, Vinny's distance, everything was showing he was just fine in practice. You have to give the benefit of the doubt to your Hall of Fame kicker, to the all-time greatest kicker, that he's going to come out of any funk he's in. He showed a couple times he was able to get out of the funk and be solid. He was AFC Player of the Week that week against the Broncos, and he had a couple really good stretches. He had a couple not so good stretches. So yeah, he's got to make his kicks. And the Steelers won. It seemed like it wasn't a great snap. It wasn't a great, the whole operation, hold, kick, the whole thing, wasn't great. And that led to kind of a shanked ball, which was unfortunate because you really wanted to get out of there, at least force an overtime, if not get a win on the road in a real tough environment. And that was a big game with Brissett out and all that. So yeah, every miss is magnified, especially late, but you got to make your plays earlier in games too. And so it's cliche, but three phases have to play well. And if at points your offense or defense aren't playing well at certain points and it leads to mistakes and leads to points to the other team, that's just as important as a missed kick at the end of the game.
Yeah, Nomadic Brian limping into playoffs would probably be one and done had they made it last year. With all the injuries that they had on the offense, yeah, they probably wouldn't have been able to keep up with some of the more potent offenses that were in the playoffs last year, especially in the AFC. I mean, with Kansas City and all of them. So I agree with you, Nomadic.
Well, the run, I will say, I think we saw Chris Ballard's vision and kind of Frank Reich's approach of run the damn ball. That really played out. Even the Chiefs average like 120, 130 rushing yards per game in the playoffs, including the Super Bowl. And the 49ers took it to an even different extreme. I think it was more than 200 yards per game. And we saw the Titans, of course, they're going to run the ball. So the Colts had some injuries, but if they were able to somehow sneak their way in, I think that offensive line, the running game could have made a difference. I mean, who knows? Of course, it's tough to say. It's, hindsight, but it'd be interesting to see how the running game for the Colts in January could have made a difference. And probably, this season, I think it will make a difference.
Oh yeah. I mean, scoring and big time offense wins you games, but it's your running game and your defense that wins championships. At least that's the cliche that's been going around the NFL for years.
It proved right last year.
Yep.
And the Chiefs, obviously they're going to throw the ball all over the yard, but they ran the ball when they had to, and they made defensive plays when they had to, and they come back and score a bunch of points in last 6 minutes of the game and thwart, DeForest Buckner from getting his Super Bowl ring. So, and it's thank you, Chiefs, because now DeForest Buckner is really motivated to come back and get back in that game, and maybe he'll get 3 sacks instead of 1.5 sacks, and 6 quarterback hits instead of 3. So I guess in a way, thanks, Chiefs.
What does Robert Windsor bring to the defense? Justin asks.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one because, the Colts are going to address, especially, we'll see how the rosters pan out, how they let them do the rosters on game day. The Colts are going to address 8 or 9 defensive linemen probably. Mm-hmm. You've also got, I didn't mention Sheldon Day earlier. He's an interior guy that's new that has shown he started the Super Bowl last year next to Buckner. So, mm-hmm. So you got to throw him in the mix, but yeah, Windsor's a guy that just makes plays. I don't know. Like you watch him at Penn State, maybe he's not the flashiest guy. Maybe, Maybe he's not, the fastest, strongest, whatever. He just makes plays. So if that can translate at this level, whether he's a 3 tech, whether he's a 1 tech, he'll find some snaps on the field. It's tough for that 7th, 8th guy to play a whole lot, but if he shows in his opportunities, if he gets them, maybe he'll get them. Maybe he'll be practice squad early and make his way on. Maybe he'll be on the 53 early on. Who knows? But if he can just keep showing the knack he showed on film at Penn State of just making plays, he'll do just fine. He'll progress, and down the road maybe be a guy that this team can really count on.
Excuse me. For some reason, I had a little cough in there. So I was actually thinking, how we're talking about special teams and everybody's got to do their job. Now, one thing that I found last year, early in training camp, they were having problems with guys doing, especially punt returns and kick returns, like muffing the football. I was there. I was watching it over at Grand Park. I was like, holy crap, a lot of these guys are having issues just fielding the football. And then out of nowhere, Nyheim Hines not only wins this job, but is just showing off explosion during games. How big will it be special teams wise if Nyheim is able to not only duplicate what he did last year, but build off of that?
I want to give Chester Rogers some props because he was the punt returner the first 10, 11 weeks of the season until he got hurt, and he was like 3rd in the league in punt return average. And I don't think he got his due props for the last couple years, really kind of being one of the better punt returners in terms of average yards per return in the NFL. And I think that gave Nyheim Hines a good opportunity. We all saw what happened in the preseason his rookie year, and all that. But I think that really gave him a good opportunity to kind of settle down, kind of get his role on offense figured out, and then come in and once he needed to replace Chester Rogers, I mean, man, he's like a bat out of hell. I mean, he was incredible. And he averaged like 30 yards a return the last 5 games of the year. And all of a sudden you look at the Colts, like as a team, and I ran these numbers at the end of the year. Well, like going into the last couple games, they're about to break the NFL record for punt return average. They ended up, I think, 3rd or 4th or 5th on that list, but the best in, I think, the AFL NFL merger era. The best punt return average, since the merger. So Bubba Ventrone and his staff and those guys, they deserve a lot of credit for that. But when you have a guy like Hines back there, it makes a big difference. And he's got all the confidence in the world now to keep it going. So that's a weapon for you. That's a weapon not a lot of teams have. If you have a solid guy back there that doesn't drop the ball, doesn't muff punts and all that, that's good. But kind of like, like I was saying with Buckner, it's good to have a defensive tackle that makes his plays. But if you have a defensive tackle that makes special plays, then you've really got something. Nyheim Hines does all the solid stuff you need at punt returner, but he also makes special plays. So that should be a big role for him moving forward. The kick returner games, I'm interested. I think all kinds of guys are in play there. You can, of course, do Hines there, but Paris Campbell, 4.31 speed. Isaiah Rogers, 4.28 speed. Zach Pascal's a guy that's handled those duties. Marcus Johnson, Ashton Doolin. I've mentioned his name a couple times. They really like Ashton Doolin. I think he showed a lot just in his special teams opportunities, making tackles last year. I think they liked the couple opportunities he had as a kick returner last year. He's kind of my Zach Pascal this year, where I don't think a lot of fans are counting him in or kind of in pencil writing him in on the depth chart, but I'd keep my eye on Ashton Doolin. I think he's got a good shot of maybe capturing one of those final 2 spots at receiver. But, there's a lot of guys in the running for that kick returner job. So, by default, you can go with Hines. But I think, Campbell, I think, Rogers, I think Doolin, I think Johnson, I think Pascal, all those guys can get the job done for you. So punt return, kick return, the Colts are pretty solid.
Awesome. Purity Empire, I don't know if anyone said this, but I hope Lawrence Owen and Andrew Walker is doing well. I love my Colts.
Hey, I am doing well, and I hope everybody out there is doing the same and keeping healthy and staying away from this thing the best you can. And if it's affected your families or friends, it's been a tough year for everyone, and hope you're hanging in there.
Yep, I think I'm just pretty much say exact same thing Andrew says. If it's affected anyone prayers out to you. I hope everything turns out well. Last question for the day. We've been here for about an hour. Just plain folks, how many rookie draft picks do you believe make this team?
Yeah. And again, it's tough because I don't know how they'll do like the rosters, but I look at Pittman, Taylor, Blackman. The interesting one's going to be quarterback. What do you do? Are all teams just by default going to keep 3 quarterbacks? And if so, are you going to go with Eason? Are you going to go with Kelly? That's a whole different – we could go down a whole different path on that one, what you want to do there. Because if Rivers, gets COVID, or if Brissett gets COVID, one of those 2 guys is one play away from getting in the game. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I think Pinter has a real good shot of being your backup at either guard spot and – for that matter, center. He's been working a lot at center too. So he's a quick learner, obviously. And I think Rodgers has a good shot. We talked about Windsor. Well, he's kind of a tweener for me. I got to kind of see him on the field at practice before I can get a good idea. Desmond Patman, another guy. He's in the running for that 5th or 6th spot. He's got to develop, obviously, at this level. So is he a candidate for the practice squad to start off with, and then work his way up from there. And Jordan Glasgow, the final guy. Chris Ballard likes this guy. He likes Jordan Glasgow. He thinks he's got elite special teams ability. And if you're not Bobby Okereke, Anthony Walker, or Darius Leonard, you have to play a big role on special teams at linebacker. And that's what Zaire Franklin and Matthew Adams have done. And I don't want to forget about EJ Speed either. He's a guy with freakish type athletic abilities that could make a big jump this year too. So with Sky Moore opting out, that creates even more competition. So I'm interested. I wouldn't be surprised if Glasgow made this roster, but we'll see. So if right now, if I had to guess, I'd probably say Patman, maybe Windsor. We'll see about Eason. I don't know how that's going to go. Maybe those guys are practice squad guys to start, but I want to see him practice. I want to see him at this level at full speed, and we'll see how they kind of develop and catch eyes there. But for the most part, you're going to have 5, 6, 7 rookies in terms of draft picks on this roster, I think, to begin with.
All right, I'm sorry I said it was going to be the last question, but after your answer making me reiterate, is Chad Kelly still practice squad eligible?
Yeah, and so I don't know all the exact rules with this, but the new kind of agreement with the NFLPA and the league has made it so you have a couple extra spots for unlimited veteran, like accrued years to be on the practice squad. And you can even protect a couple practice squad spots from being poached from other teams to be signed to their active roster this year. So yeah, I think he would have had, now I would have to look, I'm not exactly sure. I think he would have had one more year anyway, but he's definitely a guy that, maybe could. But I mean, there's going to be a lot of teams, it'll be interesting to see how COVID during the season works. And if guys at quarterback go down, that position's already a premium, but you're going to be looking for guys that can come in and just play competently. And Chad Kelly can come in. We saw in the preseason last year, did a really good job and just played competent football. That's all you need from a 3rd or 4th quarterback. So he's a guy that, that's just going to be interesting. I have no idea how that one's going to go because, I think most teams, in my mind, I'd like to get your take. I think most teams should have 3 quarterbacks this year just because of everything going on the 53. But that's one of those bucking traditions things that a lot of these coaches don't like to do. A lot of these coaches like to stick with traditions. Frank Reich mostly likes to be a 2 quarterback guy, but we saw last year once Jacoby went down in the middle of the year, that he was comfortable with 3. And I think Chad, to be honest, I think Chad earned the right to be on the 53 with just the way he kind of stepped up and on and off the field and did what he was expected to do. So, but Jacob Eason's got tools, man, and you can't teach that. And the stuff they do want to teach him, he's got a lot to learn. But once it starts clicking for him, and he gets that arm into play, man, he could be a really good quarterback. Definitely a candidate to back up, if nothing else, by next year, and maybe even be a third quarterback this year.
Yeah, because I mean, in my film room on Eason, man, I honestly believe he has the most talented arm that was in this draft. Just pure talent wise. He's got a lot of things that he needs to work on, especially movement in the pocket, throwing while on the move, stuff like that. I think
guys in his face and the pressure and
Mm-hmm. There's definitely things that he needs to work on. But here's my question. I mean, if you let someone go expecting to put them on a practice squad, they got to go through waivers before you could do that. You would be a little bit afraid that if you tried that with Eason, he'd be gone in a heartbeat, right? Yeah,
that's gonna be a tough 24 hours, because there's gonna be that. I think the Saturday before, the week before the Jacksonville game, you got to cut down to your 53-man roster, and you put guys on waivers or cut them or whatever they are in their career. You either cut them or put them on waivers. And then 24 hours or by 1 p.m. the next day, you can form your practice squad, or you can start claiming guys off waivers. So that's, I think the depth and the talent Chris Ballard has built since he started here is a testament to what he's been able to do and his staff has been able to do. So any guy that they let go, they're really going to be sweating it, because there's a lot of these guys they want on this practice squad, including undrafted rookies that we probably know nothing about. Mm-hmm. There's some talent out there in the undrafted rookie class for the Colts, guys that no one knows probably anything about, that the staff is really high on, that you want on your practice squad. So it's, for any GM, you're sweating it, that final cut day, that you want your guys on your practice squad. But I always throw the caveat in of, any other year, this year's a little bit different, but, kind of like Deion Kane last year, he got waived and then signed to the practice squad. But you could, if you're on that practice squad and you get an offer to sign to an active roster elsewhere, you can go. You could choose to stay, but you can go. So
and they have to keep them on the roster for 3 weeks.
Right. So you can be poached from a practice squad, even if it's not in final cuts, any time of the year. So you always keep that in mind. But it's just, I really can't wait to get my eyes on like the kicking situation, the Eason, Kelly, kind of where they are, situation, 5th and 6th receiver, kind of how they're using Roosevelt Nix, like we talked about. Is he a big role? Is he going to play 5 snaps a game, 10 snaps a game, or more? So on offense, there's a lot of storylines and position battles to really keep an eye on, obviously defensively too. But definitely that I just, and it's probably worth asking Frank Reich here this next week. And I've asked him this before, but it was when you had Andrew Luck and Jacoby Brissett. But I said, have you ever given thought? Because at the time, Luck was working it's 2018. He's working his way back from the shoulder. I said, is there any thought to having 3 quarterbacks at least early on? He said, probably not. And it ended up they just had 2 the whole year. But this year, I think I'll ask Frank this week, how do you approach? And he probably won't give it all away, but I'll ask him, how do you approach that now that the medical situation is a little bit different and COVID is a factor? So it's going to be really, really damn interesting to watch that stuff, especially those young guys at quarterback battling it out.
All right. I think we're about done with the – oh, wait. Oh, wow. Brissett is certainly the best backup. It's going to be hard to figure out who to cut at the wide receivers. I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, look, and I'm just saying, at receiver, I think Marcus Johnson is solid. I think he's a really good pro. And he showed last year he can come in, and he had a chip on his shoulder. He didn't make the initial team, but he came in and did a good job. He paid his dues on the practice squad for a little bit, I think, and then got signed to the active roster when the injuries hit. So you're either cutting Marcus Johnson, Ashton Doolin, who again I know this coaching staff's real high on, Desmond Patman, Darius Fountain, who had such a good training camp last year, and the very unfortunate, gruesome injury. It's good to just see him back and happy and doing everything he's doing. There's a lot of names that you're going to have to, that are going to be in consideration there for those final two spots. And even, some of the guys I haven't named bring a lot to the table. Chad Williams, I think, is a guy that has some experience in this league at receiver. So yeah, it's, they've got kind of a spoiled of riches there. Not necessarily guys that have made a ton of plays at this level, but guys that have the skill set to definitely make plays at this level.
Yeah, I fully agree. And when you have a team that's got so much depth at certain positions, especially like Colts had, obviously in recent years, they started getting a lot of depth in their offensive line and stuff. And you're seeing, like you talk about, getting poached. They were poached quite a bit last year off their practice squad.
Yeah,
I was noticing it every other week. I was like, holy crap, they keep getting, but that's just what happens. So, just because you feel like you got them on your team doesn't mean that they're there for sure. Unless, like you said, I think there's two players that you could do that with this year, where you just be like, no, you can't have them.
I forget. I think it's two. I really need to brush up on that stuff, but yeah, I think it's at least a couple guys that you can. There's a certain number of times you can move them up and down from the active to the practice squad before they're exposed to waivers.
Okay. All right. Well, stick with me a little bit after this. I want to talk to you about something, but I want to thank everybody here on Sportscaster and on YouTube for joining me here. Me and Andrew Walker, while we talked about the Indianapolis Colts, a lot of great questions. I appreciate everybody being here. Andrew, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, what's going on with you?
Yeah. I'm just ready to get back to the facility, to be honest. But no, I grew up big Colts fan. I was very fortunate that I think my first game was 1996 in the Dome. I think Jim Harbaugh was the quarterback against the Bills, and I think he got hurt or something, but the Colts ended up winning. But I really got interested, coincidentally, right around 1998, when I was probably in about third grade at that point. And of course, that's when Peyton started. So I consider myself very lucky from a fan point of hooking onto this team when I did. Very fortunate in regards to my career. Gotten some big breaks and done some really cool stuff. Started out with the Washington NFL team franchise. I'll go with that name now. Who knows what they'll be by next year. So had 4 or 5 seasons there. Got caught up in the RG3 stuff his rookie year. Really big run there. So that was a great experience. But I've had a lot of fun and been very fortunate since I got started with the Colts to be able to come home and do what I do with my hometown team and the team I've loved since I was a little kid. So it's been a lot of fun. Every job has its challenges. I have a journalism background, so I try to be as close to down the middle and, subjective as I can be, but also keep in mind I'm with the team. So that has its challenges, but I hope people, take value in the stuff that we put out, not just my stuff, but we've really done a good job, I think, with our video production, our social media, our photos, all that stuff that we do. We have a great team. And I feel like we're really shaping up well for this season, and we'll take our lumps with the coronavirus and everything. It'll be interesting, but I think we'll have a lot of fun this year. Hopefully everything goes off without a hitch. There'll still be some issues, but hopefully everything goes off with a hitch and the whole season's played. Hopefully you're still able to have at least the 25% capacity at home games, and all that's still in play right now. So we're, just antsy to get back to the facility and have some fun and watch this team build for the next few weeks into the regular season. All
right. Well, thank you again for joining us and helping us answer a lot of burning questions that a lot of us had. Don't forget, everybody, I'm here every Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to do some kind of live chat. I don't know who I'm going to have next week. We'll Hopefully I'll know by mid-time next week. But until next time, I'm Lawrence Owen with Andrew Walker of Colts.com, and I want you to have a good one.